Hey everyone, and welcome back to the next episode of Career Path with OA. I am Omar Abedin, and today I will be talking about my journey with Johnson & Johnson. In previous videos, we've covered Philips, Reckitt Coleman Pakistan, Reckitt Coleman Dubai, and then another brief stint at Reckitt Coleman Pakistan, from where I was now moving back to Dubai to join Johnson & Johnson Middle East. So as I settled in, I came to realize that Johnson & Johnson was a truly amazing company. A lot of companies talk about valuing people and having a great culture and putting community first, but J&J has this document called a credo. The Johnson & Johnson credo is a 4-paragraph statement that hangs on the wall of every conference room that I remember, and it basically covers the 4 major stakeholders that J&J is concerned with. The first group of stakeholders is the patients and consumers of J&J products. The second is the doctors and nurses and other people who use J&J products. The third is the community within which J&J lives and works. And the fourth is the shareholder. And the credo clearly states that if we take care of the first 3, the fourth one will take care of itself. And this is something that J&J has really lived and believed. I've been in discussions where massive opportunities have been passed over because they didn't align with the J&J values. So the credo was one of the things I found fascinating about the company, and the fact that people actually walk the talk around the credo was amazing. So I joined January 19th, 2000, and my wife and newborn daughter came out to join me in March. And I'd already started traveling. I was responsible for the oral wound and Sanpro franchise for the region, and Reach toothbrushes was in an extremely competitive category. Band-Aid was in an extremely competitive category because it had almost become a generic. So, we never used to refer to Band-Aid as a Band-Aid. We would refer to it as the Band-Aid brand of adhesive bandages, registered trademark, always, even in internal communications. And then, women's health, we were up against a giant in the category, Procter & Gamble. And our Carefree products had less than 10% share in the category. So a very challenging portfolio, but very diverse as well. So I was traveling, I was visiting the markets, trying to understand consumer needs in all 3 categories. They were different, as you can imagine, and it was fun. In April, my then boss Steve came to me. Steve was a Kiwi, big guy, rugby player. I remember when he was interviewing me, he had bruises all over his face, and he looked like he'd been run over by a truck. And I asked him about it, and he said, "Oh, no, nothing much, just a game of rugby." And I was like, okay. Anyway, great guy. And he came to me and he said, "Hey Omar, so I have some good news and I have some better news," which was a typical Steve line. He said, "Good news is you're coming with me to Saudi Arabia. And I was like, huh? I'd heard that, on the office grapevine that there was a possibility that J&J Saudi Arabia would be opening an office, and or rather we would be opening an office in Saudi Arabia and creating an entity there. As the biggest market, it needed the most focus. And I said, how is that good news? Saudi was a tough destination. It was a challenging market to be in, and it came with unique challenges. And he said, no. The better news is that you get to ask me for anything that you want so that you can come with me to Saudi. And I was like, okay. So I guess saying no is not an option. He said, yeah, no, saying no is not an option. Just tell me what you want. Now, what had happened in late 98, my wife and I, along with some friends, who had, been living with us in Dubai at the time, we had all applied for Canadian immigration. And in, 3 months later, in the early part of 99, we got an invitation to show up for an interview in London, at the consulate in London. So, we went, and at the time we were expecting Iman, our daughter. So we told them in the interview that, look, we're going to have this baby. So what do you think we should do? And they said, oh, we think you should wait to do your landing until you've had the delivery, and then you can do the medical for the baby as well, and then you can go do your landing. But here's your landing papers. So anyway, that was good because it gave us a little bit of time. Honestly, we thought the Canadian process would take at least a couple of years, and it happened in 3 months. So we were kind of taken aback. But anyway, so I told Steve, in a burst of inspiration, I said, hey, I want you to help me find a job with Johnson & Johnson in Canada. And he said, look, I can't guarantee you a job, but I will get you an interview. And I said, that's all I need. That would be great. So on the basis of that promise, I agreed happily to go to Saudi Arabia. So this happened in April of 2000. We worked out the rest of the year out of Dubai, and then my colleague Aftab and I had to move our families back to Pakistan, because in those days you could only apply for a residence visa for Saudi Arabia from your home country. So we had to go back to Pakistan and apply, and it took a couple of months. So we were working out of the J&J Karachi office for a couple of months, and then I think January of 2001 we were in Jeddah, and we helped to set up the new office, going to IKEA, buying desks, doing the fit out, phone systems, signboard. Like, it was just phenomenal. The whole startup experience within a multinational. So life is going well, and then my family came over to Jeddah in April, and they stayed for about 6 months. It was interesting. We were traveling all over the kingdom. We also, because our roles were still regional roles, we were now traveling out of Jeddah to Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, Kuwait, just all over the place in the region. North Africa, Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Lebanon, Jordan. It was non-stop. And there were weeks in which I would take 7 flights, 8 flights in 5 days, just market to market, and it was I loved it. I've always loved traveling. It was intense and it was just so much fun. Can't tell you. And then April of that year, my wife and I went with our daughter to Toronto. We did our landing, and Steve had been as good as his word. He had gotten me an interview at J&J in Montreal, so we drove up to Montreal, a 6-hour drive. And April was late spring or early spring. Weather was cold but not unbearable, and I went into J&J, met everybody, starting with Gail, John Healy, people from HR, just 7 or 8 people, and at the end of the day they were like, look, we like you, we think you're very qualified and whatnot, you're obviously the J&J brands, but we don't have a role for you, so stay in touch. And I said, yeah, sure, I understand. So went back to Toronto and then flew back to Jeddah and went on with my life. But every month I would send an email to John Healy, who was the VP of marketing, one of the VPs of marketing at J&J. He was an American who was working, posted in Canada as a VP of part of the consumer division. Just say, hey John, remember me? This is Omar from Saudi Arabia, just touching base. Hope all is well. And every month he would, without fail, give me a very polite and nice reply saying, hey Omar, thanks for staying in touch. Nothing's come up yet, but fingers crossed. So I did that from April till September, because guess what happened in September? Yeah, September 11th. And I was like, oh no. No one's going to give a job to a guy from Saudi Arabia at this point, But anyway, we shut down our offices. J&J was an American company in Saudi Arabia. Everyone was a bit worried about what might happen in terms of repercussions or whatnot. And we all went home for a few days. Nothing happened. Life continued. And I sent an email to John just saying, hey John, I'm really, really devastated at the tragedy that's taken place in New York, and I hope that you and your family are fine, and know that we're all praying for you guys, and we hope that, you emerge from this stronger. And then, I mentally shut down that chapter. I said, that is never going to happen now. But 3 days later, John connected me to the second VP of marketing, Shelly Cahoot. Shelly had been on vacation when I had come in, so I didn't get to meet her. Shelly was looking after the entire women's health portfolio, and that in Canada included a bunch of brands. In the last couple of years with J&J Middle East, we had some phenomenal results. The most notable was the work that we had done on the women's health franchise. We had actually been told by the Carefree regional team, which was at that time, based out of Paris, France, that we had to use regional creative. And regional creative for the women's health franchise basically had a lot of nudity. It had a lot of inappropriate levels of skin that just would not fly in Saudi Arabia or the Middle East. But they didn't understand. They didn't get it. They were like, no, why? Why do you want to make a new ad for the Middle East? The market is too small. It's, it's just too much work and too much money for the size of the business. So we invited people from the regional franchise team to come from Paris. 3 young ladies came in Getting visas for young women in Saudi Arabia, single young women in Saudi Arabia, was very difficult in those days. And they had to wear abayas and all of that. And they came. We arranged focus groups for them with women across different demographic groups and so on. And they were kind of blown away at how different the market was from real consumer attitudes, perceptions, usage habits compared to Europe. And so the result was they not only agreed to let us make our own advertising, they also agreed to change the packaging for us. The packaging, if I remember correctly, had 17 or 18 languages on it, including, back in the day, Hebrew. And Hebrew was a big problem in the Middle East. If packaging was spotted with Hebrew on it, some activist would have created a ruckus. And it was a problem waiting to happen. So they agreed to let us have our own unique trilingual packaging, which was English, Arabic, French. French for North Africa and Lebanon and these markets where French is widely spoken. Arabic for the rest of the region, and English because English. So along with that, we did some really nice in-store promotions, consumer sampling, and then we had the opportunity to go to South Africa to shoot a new commercial for Carefree. One of the best experiences of my life, even though at the time I had a broken leg. I had broken it a few days before my trip, so I was in a wheelchair and I was being carried around by people, and it was just ridiculous. But we shot an amazing ad, really focusing on Saudi culture and how women in Saudi interacted behind closed doors. So we put all that together, in-store, mass media, comms, sampling, research, turned into a very potent mix. Our market share went from single digits to 20% against a competitor like Procter & Gamble, which is no small feat, and P&G is a fierce competitor. So this is the CV bullet points that really got Shelley's interest, and our whole conversation was about how did you do that, and what was the insight, and how did you generate this, and what was the research that you did, and who did you she really wanted to know the nitty gritties of the how, along with the what and the why, and we had really great results. So lo and behold, 5 days after that, she offered me a job. Again, fax machine, sending faxes in the middle of the night for Saudi Arabia, which was, daytime in Canada. And they offered me a product director role with a $78,000 salary, Canadian. I was blown away. I would have gone as a member of the janitorial staff. I just wanted a job when I got there. I didn't want to be flipping burgers or pumping gas. I just wanted a job. And so after I got the offer from them, I literally fell to my knees in prostration, showed it to my wife. She was like, "Oh my God. This is crazy." Signed it, accepted it. And then when we started talking to HR, we realized that there were some actual challenges. There was no process in place to move someone from the Middle East to North America. The HR manual did not exist. Usually, or whenever it had happened, very, very rarely in the past, people had moved to Europe. They had moved either to London or Ireland or France or one of the other J&J markets, and then from there maybe there was a way to go to North America. So now HR had to create a completely new manual for this process, and they did. And it took them a while, but they made it happen. They made it work. It was absolutely amazing, which is why whenever I think about Johnson & Johnson, my primary feeling is one of gratitude. Just incredible thankfulness that I got to work with people like that who, gave me the opportunities that I got and helped me to capitalize on stuff that I could never have done by myself. So, January of 2002, I was landing in Canada, and we'll talk about the Canadian journey more in the next video. Thanks a lot, guys, and hope you're enjoying the series. Look forward to your thoughts. Bye.